Many men over 60 blame one hormone for their fading energy, but in real life, testosterone is often only one piece. Sometimes the real drain is your sleep, your blood sugar, your medications, or a quiet deficiency that has been building for months. If you keep treating the wrong cause, the fatigue usually stays. I'm Dr. Claire Bennett. Let's go straight into the 7 most common reasons I see older men lose energy and what each one can look like in daily life. Before we begin, let me say one important thing. Feeling a little slower from time to time is part of being human. But feeling worn down most days, losing your drive, needing extra naps, avoiding activity you used to handle well, or feeling as though your body never fully recharges, that deserves a closer look. Persistent fatigue in older adults is worth checking, especially when it lasts for weeks. Let me slow this down for a moment, because the word energy means different things to different people. For some men, low energy means they feel sleepy. For others, it means their muscles burn out too fast. For others, it means their mind feels foggy, their motivation is low, or they feel fine sitting down but drained the moment they start doing something. That difference matters. A sleepy man, a weak man, a breathless man, and a depressed man may all say, "I just have no energy." But medically, those are not the same story. That is also why quick fixes disappoint so many people. The supplement may be wrong, the internet explanation may be too simple, the lab test may be taken out of context, and the real problem may have been there all along, just hidden behind one broad complaint. Reason number 1 is poor sleep, and very often, hidden sleep apnea. This is one of the most missed causes of low energy in older men. A man tells me, "Doctor, I sleep 7 hours, sometimes 8, so why am I still exhausted?" And when we look closer, he is not getting restful sleep at all. He may be snoring loudly. He may wake up with a dry mouth. He may nod off in a chair after lunch. His wife may say he stops breathing for a few seconds at night. Or he may wake up several times to urinate and think the bladder is the whole problem, when the real problem is fragmented sleep. As we get older, sleep problems become more common. Insomnia becomes more common. Sleep apnea becomes more common. Restless legs can show up. Pain, medications, mental health issues, and nighttime urination can all break sleep apart. And here is the part many people miss. You can spend enough time in bed and still wake up depleted. If your brain and body keep getting pulled out of deeper, restoring stages of sleep, your battery never really recharges. This is why some men say, "I'm tired from the moment I get up." Not sleepy, tired, heavy, flat, slow to start, sometimes even foggy or irritable. What does this get confused with? Low testosterone, aging itself, laziness, being out of shape. Sometimes even depression. Back to sleep for a moment, because this is the section many older couples recognize immediately. Some men do not know they snore because they sleep alone. Some know they snore, but assume it is harmless. And some say, "Yes, I snore, but I do not wake up gasping, so I assumed it was nothing." Please do not use only gasping as your clue. Repeated breathing interruptions may show up more subtly. Restless sleep, morning dry mouth, morning headache, irritability, poor concentration, or needing a nap that feels almost non-negotiable. A practical example, a 68-year-old man may think his problem is simply age because he falls asleep in his recliner every afternoon. But if he also snores, wakes with a dry mouth, and feels dull-headed in the morning, sleep apnea has to move high on the list. If this sounds like you, do not just buy another supplement. Bring it up with your clinician. Sleep quality matters just as much as sleep quantity. And treating a sleep disorder can improve energy far more than chasing testosterone alone. Reason number 2 is age-related muscle loss, often made worse by too little protein and too little movement. Many older men do not notice this happening because it is gradual. You are not suddenly weak overnight. Instead, your reserve slowly shrinks. At first, it shows up in very ordinary ways. Carrying groceries feels heavier. Getting out of a low chair takes more effort. Climbing stairs leaves you more winded. Yard work that used to feel normal now seems like a major project. You start sitting more because you feel tired, but sitting more causes more muscle loss, and then you feel even more tired. That cycle is very common. Muscle is not only for appearance, it is part of how you generate strength, stability, and metabolic resilience. With aging, muscle function often declines, and lower muscle mass and strength are linked with weakness, lower energy, and difficulty with daily activities. Regular physical activity, especially muscle strengthening activity, helps older adults maintain function and supports blood sugar control, mood, and overall stamina. Another misunderstanding is this: many men think that if their body weight is stable, their muscle must be stable too. That is not always true. A person can lose muscle and gain fat at the same time, so the scale barely changes. But daily life changes. You take longer to recover. You avoid stairs without saying it out loud. You look for the nearest chair. You stop carrying 2 grocery bags and start carrying 1. Those are very real clues. Many men over 60 also eat less protein than they realize. Breakfast may be toast and coffee. Lunch may be soup. Dinner may be small. Or chewing trouble, poor appetite, living alone, or trying to eat light leads to meals that simply do not support muscle maintenance anymore. What does this get confused with? Just getting older. Poor motivation, testosterone problems, heart problems, sometimes all of the above. A practical example: a man tells me he feels tired every afternoon, but when I ask what he ate, it was coffee at 8, a muffin at 10, and maybe some crackers later. That is not enough fuel or enough protein for a body trying to preserve muscle after 60. What helps? First, stop thinking of exercise only as long walks. Older adults benefit from a mix of activity, walking or other aerobic movement, muscle strengthening work, and balance training. That can mean chair stands, light resistance bands, carrying groceries carefully, step-ups by the stairs, or supervised gym work. Second, look honestly at protein intake across the whole day, not only dinner. Many older adults feel stronger when they distribute protein better instead of eating very little all day and one decent meal at night. The goal is not bodybuilding. The goal is reserve, because reserve is what lets you move through your day without feeling drained by noon. Reason number 3 is blood sugar trouble, including undiagnosed diabetes, poorly controlled diabetes, or big swings between high and low sugar. This one can be surprisingly quiet. Some men expect diabetes to announce itself dramatically, but type 2 diabetes can develop slowly, and symptoms may be mild enough that people barely notice them at first. Fatigue is one of the symptoms that can show up, along with increased thirst, urination, hunger, blurry vision, or recurrent infections. Low blood sugar episodes can also make people feel tired, shaky, lightheaded, or irritable. Here's what that looks like in real life. You eat a large sweet breakfast and feel sleepy an hour later. You get shaky if lunch is late. You feel wiped out after dinner instead of satisfied. You wake up 2 or 3 times a night to urinate. You feel thirsty but blame dry indoor air, or your energy crashes in the late afternoon, and you think you are simply not as young as before. Some men are dealing with chronically high blood sugar. Others are on diabetes medication and getting lows they do not recognize clearly, and some are bouncing between the two. What does this get confused with? Normal aging, poor sleep, stress, too much coffee, low testosterone again. I also want to separate 2 feelings that people lump together. One is that heavy, sleepy feeling after a high carbohydrate meal. The other is the shaky, sweaty, irritable, almost urgent feeling that can happen when blood sugar drops too low. Older adults do not always read those signals clearly. Some describe both as weakness, some describe both as anxiety, some just say, "I need something sweet." That is why pattern tracking matters so much. A practical example: a 72-year-old man says he has no energy after breakfast. When I ask what breakfast is, he says orange juice, cereal, toast, and jam. Then he crashes, gets hungry again, and thinks his body is weak. Sometimes that pattern is not weakness at all. It is unstable blood sugar. What should you do? Do not guess. Get tested if the symptoms fit. And if you already have diabetes, pay attention to patterns. When you feel your best, when you crash, what meals come before it, and whether any medication changes have recently happened. Energy is often steadier when blood sugar is steadier. Reason number 4 is low testosterone. Yes, it belongs on the list, but it does not deserve all the blame. Testosterone can decline with age, and true hypogonadism can contribute to lower libido, reduced morning erections, lower muscle mass, anemia, and lower energy. But the key word here is true. Major endocrine guidelines recommend diagnosing hypogonadism only in men who have symptoms and signs consistent with testosterone deficiency and repeatedly low morning testosterone levels. They also advise against routinely prescribing testosterone to all men over 65 with low numbers alone. That matters because many men now see a lab number online and assume it explains everything. Sometimes it does not. Low testosterone can be part of the picture, but if your fatigue is mainly from sleep apnea, uncontrolled diabetes, medication side effects, or anemia, testosterone treatment will not solve the whole problem. There is another detail older men often appreciate when I explain it this way. The symptoms of low testosterone overlap with many other conditions: fatigue, low mood, poor concentration, reduced physical performance, sleep disturbance. These are real symptoms, but they are not specific enough by themselves to prove testosterone is the main cause. Here is another point I want older men to hear clearly. A low testosterone level, on one occasion, is not the same as a confirmed diagnosis. Levels vary. Timing matters, food intake matters, illness matters. Some medications, including opioids, can suppress testosterone concentrations. That is one more reason not to build your whole explanation around one number from one morning. A practical example: a man comes in feeling flat, with less interest in sex and less motivation to exercise. His testosterone is slightly low once. That is not the finish line. We still have to ask, how is he sleeping? Has he lost muscle? Is he depressed? Is he on opioids? Has he had repeat morning labs? Has anyone checked for anemia? That is what careful medicine looks like. If you are worried about testosterone, have the conversation, but do not let the conversation end with a shortcut. Numbers matter, symptoms matter, context matters. And in older men, more testosterone is not automatically the same thing as more energy. Reason number 5 is medication side effects and medication pileup. This is one of the most practical reasons because it often hides in plain sight. Many older adults take several medicines. That is common and often necessary. But as we age, the body can process medications differently, and older adults face higher risk of side effects and interactions. The fatigue itself may not come from disease alone. It may come from what is being used to treat the disease, or from several medicines pulling in the same direction. A few common patterns: an older antihistamine taken at night leaves you groggy the next morning. A pain medicine makes you drowsy and less active. A blood pressure medicine lowers pressure enough that you feel weak when you stand. A sleep aid helps you fall asleep, but leaves you dull the next day. An anxiety medicine takes the edge off, but slows your reaction time and drains your drive. Medline Plus also notes that certain medicines, including some antidepressants, antihistamines, and medicines for nausea and pain, can contribute to fatigue. And sometimes it is not one drug, it is the combination. Prescription medicine, over-the-counter cold or allergy pills, sleep products, supplements, and alcohol. That mix can quietly steal energy. What does this get confused with? Aging, memory decline, depression, low testosterone, even lazy mornings. I also want to mention something simple but important. Over-the-counter products count. Nighttime cold medicine, sleep gummies, motion sickness pills, borrowed pain tablets, natural calming products, allergy tablets from the pharmacy. These all belong on your list. I have seen older adults work very hard to figure out why they feel tired, only to realize the answer was sitting in a bedside drawer. A practical example: a man starts a new nighttime medicine and tells me 2 weeks later that he suddenly has less energy and feels mentally cloudy before noon. That is not always a new illness. Sometimes it is timing, dose, or a side effect. This is why I encourage older adults to keep an updated medicine list and bring every pill, including supplements, into the conversation. Do not stop prescription medication on your own. But do ask directly, could this be contributing to my fatigue? Could the dose be too strong? Could 2 medicines be overlapping in a way that makes me tired? Those are smart questions, and older adults should ask them. Reason number 6 is anemia, low iron, vitamin B12 deficiency, or slow blood loss. If sleep is the most missed cause of low energy, anemia is one of the most underestimated. Your body needs healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen. When that system is off, people often say they feel tired, weak, short of breath with activity, dizzy, or simply not themselves. NHLBI notes that anemia can make people feel tired, cold, dizzy, and irritable. And vitamin B12 deficiency anemia can begin with fatigue, paleness, shortness of breath, headaches, or dizziness. Why is this especially relevant after 60? Because the causes can hide: a poor diet, too little B12 absorption, chronic kidney disease, long-term stomach acid medication, bleeding from the stomach or bowel, aspirin or blood thinners, making a slow bleed more significant. And sometimes anemia shows up before a person notices anything else clearly. What does it get confused with? Being out of shape, heart aging, low testosterone, stress, a bad week. With anemia and B12 deficiency, fatigue is sometimes the first complaint, but it is not always the only one. You might notice less exercise tolerance. You might feel your heart pounding sooner with effort. You may become dizzy standing up. With B12 deficiency, some people also notice numbness, tingling, balance trouble, or memory changes. A practical example: a 70-year-old man says he is fine sitting still, but showering, carrying laundry, or walking uphill suddenly wipes him out. That pattern should make you think beyond motivation. If your energy disappears, mainly with exertion, oxygen delivery, heart function, lung function, and blood counts all deserve attention. This is one reason I tell older men not to self-diagnose fatigue too quickly. If you are paler than usual, more breathless, or lightheaded, do not sit on it for months. It is also important because men sometimes assume low energy plus lower sexual interest must be testosterone. Sometimes the missing link is anemia instead. Reason number 7 is an underactive thyroid. The thyroid helps regulate metabolism, which is essentially how the body uses energy. When thyroid hormone is too low, many body functions slow down. That can translate into fatigue, slower thinking, feeling cold, constipation, dry skin, muscle weakness, weight change, and a general sense that your body is moving through mud. This is another condition that can creep in gradually. You may not wake up one day and say, something is very wrong. Instead, over months, you feel slower, colder, more constipated, less sharp, and less energetic. You may blame the season, retirement, poor sleep, or simple aging. What does hypothyroidism get confused with? Depression, normal aging, medication side effects, low testosterone, even low motivation. And with thyroid slowing, the pace of change can be so gradual that family members notice before the person does. A spouse may say, "You seem slower. You never used to be this cold. You used to get more done before lunch." Those comments are not proof of a thyroid problem, but they are worth hearing. A practical example. A man says, "I'm tired all the time. My skin is dry. I'm more constipated, and I cannot seem to warm up." That is not a diagnosis by itself, but it is exactly the kind of pattern that should prompt a thyroid discussion and lab work instead of more caffeine. One important caution: do not jump to trendy explanations online. Not every tired person has a hormone crisis, and not every hormone problem needs the same treatment. What you need is accurate testing and the right interpretation, not a dramatic label. Now, after hearing all 7 reasons, you may be wondering, how do I know which one sounds most like me? This is where I want you to think in patterns instead of single symptoms. If your main story is snoring, unrefreshing sleep, and daytime drowsiness, think sleep first. If your main story is weakness when standing, climbing stairs, or carrying things, think muscle loss, deconditioning, and possibly poor nutrition. If your energy crashes around meals, thirst is up, urination is up, or you get shaky, think blood sugar. If the picture includes low libido, fewer morning erections, reduced muscle, or unexplained anemia, testosterone may be part of the conversation, but not the only part. If fatigue began after a medication was started or increased, look hard at your medicine list. If exertion wipes you out, dizziness has crept in, or you feel pale and breathless, think anemia or another cardiopulmonary issue. If you feel slowed down, cold, constipated, and mentally dull, think thyroid. And I will add one more layer here, even though it is not in today's numbered list: mood matters. Depression in older adults is common, serious, and not a normal part of aging. It can reduce energy, appetite, sleep quality, motivation, concentration, and physical activity. So if fatigue is arriving together with hopelessness, loss of interest, withdrawal, or persistent sadness, please do not ignore that part of the story. So what do good next steps usually look like in the real world? Often, it starts with a solid history and a few basic questions. When did this start? Was it sudden or gradual? What else changed at the same time? How are sleep, appetite, mood, weight, and bowel habits? What medicines changed? What does a usual breakfast, lunch, and dinner look like? Are you more tired at rest or only with activity. Then the next step may include examination and targeted testing, not random guesswork. Depending on the pattern, your clinician may consider blood counts, thyroid tests, glucose testing, medication review, or sleep evaluation. That does not mean everyone needs every test. It means the pattern should guide the workup. And one final practical reminder. Sometimes more than one cause is present. An older man can have mild sleep apnea, too little protein, borderline diabetes, and a sedating medication all at the same time. That is one reason fatigue can feel so stubborn. It may not be one big dramatic diagnosis. It may be 4 moderate problems stacking together. When that happens, improvement often comes in layers too. Sleep gets better, walking gets easier, meals get more balanced, a medication is adjusted, a deficiency is treated, and over a few months, the person says, "I still feel my age, but I do not feel half dead anymore." That is a realistic and worthwhile goal. Let me give you the mistake I most want you to avoid. Do not reduce all fatigue in older men to testosterone. That is too narrow, and it delays real answers. The better question is, what pattern is my body showing me? Am I sleepy, weak, breathless, foggy, dizzy, low in motivation, or crashing after meals? Those are not the same problem. They only feel the same when we use one vague word, tired. Here is a practical next step checklist you can use before your next appointment. First, write down when your energy is worst. Morning, after meals, late afternoon, only with exertion, all day. Second, write down anything that travels with the fatigue: snoring, dry mouth, shortness of breath, dizziness, leg weakness, constipation, night urination, thirst, low libido, low mood, or a recent medication change. Third, bring a full medication and supplement list. Fourth, notice whether you are losing muscle, eating less protein, or moving less because fatigue has changed your routine. And fifth, seek medical attention sooner rather than later if fatigue persists for weeks or is getting worse, especially when it comes with more concerning symptoms such as fainting, worsening shortness of breath, or major functional decline. If I were to summarize this in one sentence, it would be this: energy loss after 60 is often real, common, and treatable, but only when you stop guessing and start sorting the pattern carefully. Testosterone may be one reason, but it is rarely the only question worth asking. And sometimes the real cause is the one you never suspected: the sleep disorder, the medicine cabinet, the drifting blood sugar, the low blood count, the slowed thyroid, or the quiet loss of muscle that has been stealing your reserve one ordinary day at a time. That is why I want you to be curious, not embarrassed, specific, not vague, and proactive, not frightened, because older adults do better when they understand what their symptoms may mean, what they may be confused with, and what safe next steps actually look like. If this topic felt personal, that may be a sign your body has been trying to get your attention for a while. Listen to it. Then get the right help for the right reason.